behind other parts of the country when it comes to creating natural protected areas and parks. The Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society released its annual report on the state of Canada's parks this morning. It's called One Step Forward, Two Steps Back. And according to the report, New Brunswick is heading in the wrong direction. Only 3% of our province is now protected. The plan to increase that percentage by only a fraction has been delayed over and over again. Meanwhile, next door in Nova Scotia, there are plans to expand parks and protected areas that will result in 12% of the province being protected. Roberta is the executive director of the New Brunswick chapter of the Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society. She joins us in the studio this morning. Good morning. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Terry. Thanks.
Okay, here's a broad question to start our conversation. Why is protecting land in New Brunswick such a difficult process?
Well, we've perennially been the laggards on this file across the country, and if I could put my finger on it, I guess I would be able to have achieved more new protected areas in New Brunswick, or helped to encourage more to happen over the last couple of decades. I would say that right now the provincial government is moving forward with an even more industrialized approach to our Crown land management. So half the province of New Brunswick is Crown land and half is private land. And the Crown land is really where there's the best opportunity to protect these large natural areas, large old forests, watersheds, drinking water supply areas. That's the best opportunity is on Crown land. And right now, the provincial government is proceeding quite quickly, apace, with a much more industrial approach to managing the forest. So we've always had a lot of industrial forestry on Crown land and some mines. And now there's another proposed new large mine in the Nashwauk River watershed system, and of course the shale gas exploration, which may at some point lead to industrialized development on Crown.
When you say a more industrialized approach to forestry, what do you mean?
Well, as opposed to small ecological forestry operations, we're talking about large clear cuts. We're talking about big industrial players who have access to manage the forest, the Crown forest, and it is a much more intensive approach to forest management than perhaps a small woodlot owner who might go and take some wood off their property at some point, but for the most part, leave a lot of the forest canopy standing.
Didn't we settle that question of what we wanted to happen to the forest when the select committee on Crown forests did its hearings into the recommendations of the Apple-Pori report, and people said, no, we don't want to go the industrial way?
Well, definitely there have been many recommendations, and every time we check in with the public, which is admittedly not that often, unfortunately, the public does speak out loud and clear that they want the river systems protected, they want our wildlife habitat protected, they want to have these outdoor areas for recreational purposes as well, and perhaps to be the backbone of an ecotourism industry, which it's hard to have a really well-developed ecotourism industry in New Brunswick because they don't really have a lot of permanently protected destinations that they could count on year after year. So you can't build an industry of ecotourism taking people into the great outdoors if you're not sure if that area will be there next year.
So where's the disconnect occurring between what the public tells its politicians what it wants and what government does in terms of policy development or in the lack of protection?
Well, it's no secret that the provincial government is kind of behind the fiscal 8-ball there, that they definitely feel. I certainly, as a citizen, feel that they have a sense of desperation about what needs to happen with respect to turning our economy around and bringing more jobs to the province and sustaining the jobs we have. So they seem to rely a lot upon natural resource development and that industrial approach to natural resource development as the backbone to what they see as the current and future economy for the province. So that really does interfere with their ability to think big about other forms of economic development, like ecotourism, or even just the very basic need to protect our water supplies and the rivers that are the physical backbone of the province.
So is it your view that the government is sacrificing this protection for the sake of industrial development?
Well, that appears to be the case. Every time there's a decision point about how much area we should protect or how much area we should allocate for forestry and mining on Crown land, the amount that is decided to be protected is quite small always. And what we felt that there was a step forward that might actually happen last fall when they came out with these protected areas candidates. They were, for the most part, fairly small, and they were all quite far apart from each other, so it wasn't the best case scenario from a protection of the natural environment perspective, but at least it was a step forward, and now we're concerned that there's been such a long delay in actually protecting those areas. And it's our understanding that it's because they did receive a lot of negative backlash from the mining sector on those candidates that went out to public consultation. So
So the mining sector is determining what happens with protected spaces?
Well, definitely they appear to have quite a lot of influence in what's going to happen. There is a commitment on the table to protect, as you noted earlier, to go up to 4.5% of the province, which would be protected. It's a small step forward. To me, we're just talking about 1% of the province, and it feels to me that it would be perfectly reasonable for the public to expect that that small amount of New Brunswick could be protected from mining, that we don't really need to have the whole province open for mining, and that those areas could actually be set aside for other uses that are equally important.
There are probably some people, I can guarantee it, there are some people who are listening to us who are saying, look, I don't have a job, I need a job, develop a way. Is there a way to develop the natural resources sector and still provide protection to some of the most sensitive areas in the province? Can you do both?
Well, I believe you can do both, because almost every other jurisdiction in Canada is proving that they're able to do both. So Nova Scotia right next door, they're a small province. They have a mining sector, they have a forestry sector, and they also are leaps and bounds ahead of us when it comes to protected areas. They also, as a side benefit, whether it's one of those chicken and egg kind of things, I don't know which comes first,
right,
but they also have a really well-developed ecotourism part of the economy. That's a big part of their economy, and it provides that diversity of the economy that is really important to a lot of their communities.
What's that worth? Do you have any idea what the dollar figure is?
No, I have no idea in Nova Scotia what the dollar figure is. I know ours has been $1 billion economy, our tourism economy itself. And of course that provides lots of jobs to people as well. So there is a way to balance it. It's that in New Brunswick the decision makers have time and time again chosen to restrict the amount that's protected in favor of allocating more for forestry, mining, and other industrial uses on Crown land. So it's clear to me that across the country, Quebec, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Manitoba, everybody else is moving further and further ahead, and we're falling further behind the national average. Right now, the national average is 9% of the jurisdictions are in protected areas, and every single jurisdiction is moving ahead of us, and so that national average is getting further and further away because large protected areas in northern Quebec. The largest provincial park ever established in Canada was just protected by the province of Quebec. So it can be done. It does take the political will to realize that it is beneficial to the economy to be able to say we have that ecological safety net that helps to balance off the risk of going with a more industrial approach to Crown management.